There is a quiet skill in noticing, a sense that observing one's internal states, cataloging moods, and monitoring reactions is inherently intelligent. It feels like clarity, like responsibility, like an adult mind at work. The process is subtle, almost invisible. Thoughts are measured, feelings are indexed, reactions are noted, patterns are recognized before they unfold. This self-awareness carries a sense of control, not over the external world, but over the inner one. The mind believes that by noticing, it is already acting, that by understanding, it is already navigating. The habit of noticing is efficient. It allows avoidance of errors, the suppression of surprises, the containment of extremes. The mind becomes a quiet administrator of its own states. There is a sense of maturity in this. To reflect, to measure, to anticipate, to witness the body and the mind in motion without disturbance, to separate thought from action. At first, this seems protective. It appears that insight replaces impulsiveness, that analysis prevents mistake, that awareness maintains stability. The mind leans into it. It trusts the practice because it produces an observable pattern of predictability. Internal fluctuations are smoothed. Emotions are moderated. Even doubt has structure. Even discomfort has form. Each feeling is cataloged, labeled, and stored for future reference. There is comfort in this, a quiet certainty, a steady pulse of internal knowledge that feels like intelligence rather than improvisation. In these conditions, the mind perceives itself as active, even when the external world is left unchanged. The impression of movement, decision, and reflection creates the illusion of engagement. This is the useful illusion. It functions. It protects. It appears as clarity and competence. Yet the subtlety of its efficiency hides truth. The mind, in relying on noticing, begins to rely on substitution. Awareness begins to replace action. Observation begins to replace movement. Reflection begins to replace encounter. The surface appears calm. The rhythm of consciousness seems orderly. The work of the mind seems productive. But the work is, in many ways, not the work that changes anything outside or inside. It is the work of the mind observing itself indefinitely. The more the habit is practiced, the more it is trusted. The more it is trusted, the less risk is taken. And because risk is absent, change is absent. The process is not dramatic. There is no explosion of insight. There is only the slow accumulation of internal efficiency. A silent, invisible reinforcement of staying still while appearing to move.
The first cost is subtle narrowing. Awareness, practiced too frequently without action, begins to function as a buffer, not against danger, but against uncertainty. Feelings that are difficult, ambiguous, or discomforting are noted and set aside. They are categorized and deferred. The mind registers them without engaging. Understanding becomes delay. Reflection becomes avoidance. Insight replaces risk. The heart feels a tension that is not recognized as tension. The body holds a space for unexpressed emotion. The mind records what is happening without ever allowing it to fully arrive. Each observed state that is not acted upon is a small concession. Each untested feeling becomes a brick in a wall. The mind convinces itself that it is still active, that observation is equivalent to intervention, that noticing is a form of engagement. Yet the cost is cumulative. It is invisible because each step is reasonable, each instance is justified. There is no sudden rupture. No crisis announces itself. The quiet accumulation changes the structure of perception. The world contracts. Only what can be indexed, named, and measured is noticed. Everything else falls to the periphery. Emotional range decreases. The intensity of raw experience diminishes. Surprise, vulnerability, and openness retreat, not dramatically, but gradually, imperceptibly. Decision-making becomes subtly constrained. Options that do not fit the observed self are dismissed before they reach consciousness. Novelty is ignored. Risk is avoided. The mind prefers the familiar shape of its internal operations. Even relationships are filtered. Interactions are interpreted before they are experienced. Connections are predicted, categorized, rehearsed. Responses are gauged against internal records rather than reality. Presence thins. Life is attended to in fragments, mediated by memory and habit rather than encounter. The mind becomes a silent editor of experience, preserving continuity and removing unanticipated edges. The illusion of control strengthens. Awareness feels like action. Reflection feels like movement. Insight feels like depth. But the cost is profound, quiet, and slow. Emotional resonance fades. Spontaneity disappears. Life is experienced with precision, but without texture. The mind has traded intensity for predictability. Curiosity is replaced with calibration. Risk is replaced with observation. And still, the habit is defended. It is reasonable. It is intelligent. It is mature. It is effective. Yet it leaves something behind. Something felt but not registered. Something once noticed but now avoided. Something alive but no longer encountered.
The moment comes, not as an alarm, but as a quiet realization. Observation has continued without interruption. Insight has been cultivated. Reflection has been precise, yet nothing has shifted. No external change, no internal release, no alteration in circumstance or in emotional presence. The protective function has reached its limit. Awareness no longer ensures adaptation or movement. The structure that once safeguarded now preserves stasis. The cost manifests not as pain, but as emptiness. The effort of noticing, which once felt like intelligence, now feels like repetition. The repetition itself consumes energy without effect. Risk has been deferred so consistently that engagement is no longer instinctive. Experience arrives, and the mind filters it before it is felt. Action is calculated, rehearsed, contained. Life is processed through a buffer. Nothing changes because nothing is being risked. The friction is subtle. There is no drama, there is no catastrophe, only the sense that effort does not produce result, that clarity has replaced movement, that insight has replaced encounter. And yet the mind continues, observation persists, reflection deepens, insight accumulates. But the gap widens. What is felt is muted. What is noticed is catalogued. What is lived is recorded, not inhabited.
The friction is internal. It is a small, quiet resistance that grows across months and years. It is the sense of life being measured rather than lived. The useful illusion, once protective, now functions as a barrier. It prevents engagement, not harm. It maintains structure, not vitality. Awareness itself is revealed as a frame. A habit that was once functional is recognized as substitution. Insight replaces encounter. Reflection replaces action. Observation replaces presence. The recognition is quiet. It does not demand correction. It does not suggest improvement. What was assumed to be intelligence is now seen as containment. What was assumed to be depth is now seen as distance. The mind has been working diligently, but the work has been misdirected. Not through failure, but through function. Not through fault, but through adaptation. This understanding removes assumption. It does not add technique. It opens a space between noticing and doing, between reflection and engagement. It exposes the habit of substitution, the subtle exchange of presence for analysis, of experience for observation. The shift is internal, minimal, precise, almost imperceptible. The mind observes itself observing. And in this observation, the buffer thins. The habit is still present, but it is no longer the unquestioned lens. The difference is quiet. A fraction of a second. A pause between noticing and labeling. A slight distance between feeling and cataloging. Nothing else is demanded. No action, no resolution, no change. Only the awareness of what has been silently substituted for presence.
The mind rests in this observation, still, neutral, present. The habit continues, but without authority. Reflection flows, but no longer dictates experience. Observation is present, but does not replace engagement. Nothing is concluded. Nothing is resolved. The sensation of absence is neither praised nor condemned. It simply exists. The habit of noticing continues, and within that continuity, a slight space emerges. A gap, a pause. The things you don't feel anymore are still registered, even if silently, even if unseen, even if untouched, and the mind watches.